أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Hussein ibn Ali salamullah alayhi cannot be reduced to a person who was driven to Karbala by the force of circumstances. He was far more than that. And it is quite evident from the statements of Hussein ibn Ali and from the way in which he conducts himself on the day of Ashura. It's a great injustice to put him to a rigorous analysis and then to reduce him from all the lofty objectives, aspirations that he nurtured within his soul, and especially his meeting with his God. Oh yes, he was a revolutionary, I know. A year prior to his Shahada, he gives an epic sermon in Mina in which he holds the preachers and the scholars accountable for the state of the society. And says, it is your fear and it is your love for this world and your lack of obedience to God that has brought this state upon the Ummah. It is your greed, your fear of death and poverty, your state of worldliness that allows the Bani Umayyah, their tyranny, to prevail. Do you not see the poor, how they are oppressed? Do you not see the exploitation? Do you not see what the Bani Umayyah are doing? And you are failing to put a stop to that. What stops me from speaking the truth but the love for my life and my lack of reverence of God and my lack of trust in God? So Hussein was far beyond what the modern scholarship is trying to tell us. He was well beyond it all. The very fact that we are gathered here, we are not gathered here primarily by our minds. When it comes to Hussein, we are gathered here through our hearts, and we know that. We cannot deny it. When it comes to Hussein ibn Ali, the mind is second. The heart predominantly pulls us to Hussein ibn Ali. Who can deny this? I'm certainly not here for an intellectual stimulation. I'm here because of my reverence and love for Hussein ibn Ali. I want to die and I want to be with my master, with my beloved. I want to live for him, I want to die for him. If Allah gives me the honor, I would have every bit of my body torn away in the name of my Hussein. That is what brings me here and nothing else. This man was grand. He's a universal figure. He is somebody who lives at the core of our being. He is somebody with whom our inner godliness resonates. He shows us in his being what is hidden within us. And we yearn for that completion, and through him we find that completion. He stands at that pedestal of humanity. He is the most universal figure. I will tell you this much. Even if the prophets do not convince people, or Imam Ali, Hussein ibn Ali will convince every heart of his righteousness. People will look at Hussein and they will say, there is such a deep truth embedded in there that my inner being recognizes. The spirit of defiance, holding the head up high in dignity, saying no to oppression, standing with that moral righteousness, that courage, Even in the midst of arrows and striking spears and blades, he did not lose his sense of righteousness. He did the right thing. Until the end, he does not complain, but he increases in his glorious light and his radiance. Can you imagine a person who's been torn so brutally and still supplicates to Allah? Qareebun Mujib. You are near, you respond. Do you find anyone like Hussein? His Abbas is torn. He shakes the dust off his garment and walks away. His Akbar rubs his heel upon the dust. He stands up. He says, "Oh Allah, you are my strength," and walks away. His Asghar causes the throne of God to tremble. But the lion of God walks and he says, "Oh Allah, to you we return." Have you ever seen a man like that? Consider him and consider him again. This man is the one who will give us salvation. There is nothing but God inside his chest. There is nothing but the divine within him. He's reaching out to the divine and the divine is reaching out to him. It's a meeting point of a human and the sacred. And that is what pulls us to Hussein ibn Ali, a most universal figure humanity has ever seen. He is the pride of humanity. In his Dua Arafah, which is prior to his Shahada, he says, "Oh Allah," and of course I paraphrase, he says, "Oh Allah, now I have begun to understand that every event in my life was constructed so meticulously as to introduce me to you. And I'm just going to elaborate on this. The comforting lap of my mother with the blindness of her love was a mere glimpse of your blind love for me. The sacrifices of my father was a glimpse and an introduction to your sacrificing nature for me. The support of my brother was your support for me. The non-judgmental acceptance of my friend of me was your acceptance of me. As if to say, "Oh Allah, it was always you and it was always I. There was nobody else in this story. It was our story. And it is our story with God. He is the only one." If we don't find him, as Hussein says, then what do we find? By Allah, when you say La ilaha illallah, by God He frees us. The Prophet said, "Man khaf Allah, khaf Allah kulla shay'in min." One who is fearful of God, God causes all to fear him. وَمَنْ خَافَ غَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَخَافَهُ اللَّهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. And the one who fears other than Allah, Allah causes him to fear everything else. There have come moments in our lives when we have turned to Allah and we've said, "Oh Allah, do you wish to see this head bow before other than you in order to appease them for their power and their wealth and their acknowledgement and their approval? Nay, O God, have it cut before I bow in front of anybody else." And those moments in which the creatures of God have abandoned us have been the greatest moment of reception of God. By Allah, He doesn't leave anybody. I don't want to tell you my stories or whatever, but try it. Hold your head up high, filled with pride, and say, "This head will cut, but it will bow not in front of others." This is what Hussein teaches, and this is where we want to be from within. When you find God, you have found what you're looking for. Then paradise is not sufficient. Then the Lord of paradise becomes the reward. Now think of this thing as we go into this talk, and I'm sorry for this little prelude. a part of the talk, I suppose, in a way. Hussein ibn Ali displays to us a journey of a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is defiant. Defiant because he says, none but Allah will rule over me. In the depths of tribulations, he holds on to God and doesn't lose his faith, doesn't lose sense of his dignity and nobility. At every point, he does not complain to Allah and cry out to Allah, why me? If anything, he says, أنت ثقتي في كل حالي ولا معبود سواك. You are the one I trust in every state, and there's no one worthy of devotion save you. It is a journey of a lover to the beloved, and we can see this clearly. I acknowledge that those around Imam Hussein may not have been able to see God in that way, for they were immersed in Hussein ibn Ali. But when the story of Hussein is heard, we can see that he was immersed in Allah Himself. And we can see that very, very clearly. Now tell me, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, if we don't move to God and don't revere God, then what have we attained? This body, do you not know, as we live, it ages? The dust is being called back to dust. How strange is our story. I live and breathe, and my body is descending to its origin. Loss of agility, loss of strength, loss of memory, loss of identity. I'm losing everything at every breath, bit by bit. My body is going back from the place from whence it arose, and my soul has yet not found its own place. What can be said about the children of Adam, who have come here to find their beloved, and all they've done is cherish the body and lived for the body and lived for each other and forgotten the one who matters? The Prophet said that when the name of Allah is called out, and if you can engage in vainful talk, then your worship has come to naught. Why? Because if Allah meant anything, the soul would have trembled in awe of God. You would not be busied in this world. I am not saying to you, I'm reminding myself. Yes, I'm reminding myself. But we have to try slowly and gradually to work towards it. We can't curse ourselves either. We are, after all, feeble humans, right? Slowly, gradually, but we have to make an attempt. The ayat says about the believers, إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ and when the verses are recited upon him, وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, their hearts become frightful. إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, when Allah is mentioned, their hearts are overpowered with awe. وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا, and when His signs are recited upon them, their faiths increase. And about the prophets, إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُ الرَّحْمَنِ خَرُّوا سُجَّدًا وَبُكِيًّا, and when the signs of God are recited upon them, spontaneously and inadvertently they fall in prostration, crying at the recognition of the truth. That is where God is supposed to be with the son of Adam. That is when Hussein stands and says to the raging arrows, come, spare me not. Tear me into pieces, if you will. When God penetrates the realms of the soul, we must understand that there is a unique and a grand opportunity here. And we must take that opportunity and we must find God. Our transaction with God is a very worldly transaction. Think about our prayers. God, give me health. God, give me wealth. God, give me progeny and offsprings. God, give me a good job. Aren't these our prayers? They are nothing to do with the individual's relationship with God. These are the things God will give us anyway, whether we ask Him or not, because He's taken it upon Himself to do that for us. Of course, it's good to ask God for all of those things. But why don't we ask Allah, oh Allah, bring me closer to you. Allow me to recognize you. Allow me to feel that contentment through you. Allow me to accept your decree. Free me from my inner struggle, that I'm pleased with what you have apportioned for me. Why isn't that prayer being made? Oh Allah, take me to Hajj this year, and then do what? Turn around that house, come back, and we'll still be as insecure? Instead, say to Allah, oh Allah, allow me to come to you. For if I found you, I have lost nothing. We can't have this bodily transaction with God and this worldly transaction with God. Do you know what will happen? Then the scales will be placed, and every small deed will be placed upon the scale, and our fate will be determined by the weights of the scale. I, for one, am not going to have the right hand of my scale heavier than my left hand, and I know this. I don't have those good deeds. If I want to interact with God at a bodily level, then I'm going to be the biggest damned soul. I don't stand a chance. We need to interact with God at the level of the soul. There was a young man, I watched his growth, very unruly, very angry, extremely worldly. All of a sudden, something happened, and he picked up the Quran. He started reading the Quran, and he said to me, do people like this exist, what the Quran is talking about, these hypocrites, this kuffar? Then he came back and he said, you know what, I've seen these people, they do exist. Then he came back and he said, it's talking about me. It's talking about me, I am that one. He didn't pray or fast, he couldn't be bothered with all these things. He was partying. Started doing one sajda, forget wudu or salah, one sajda. And then that sajda before sleep started to get prolonged. And soon 5-time prayers. And soon abandoned everything. And soon started to search Allah. Is that one sajda? In reverence of the beloved. It's that one sajda. Just do it. Calmly perform that one sajda. And let the beloved do the rest. And He will. And He will. And those of us who do sajda, do one sajda in which the body is not in prostration, but the soul is in prostration to God. And talk with Him. Acknowledge ourselves. Don't fear death. Tell Him, I don't know what death is, I don't even know who you are, but I want to trust you. And go towards God. Now, we cannot interact with God at a bodily level. It's not right. God has to be interacted with at a profound level. Because the bodies will inevitably be assembled in front of God. And on that day, the Quran says, La yandur ilayhim. He will not look at them. Wala yuzakkihim. And He will not purify them. Wala yukallimuhum. And He will not talk with them. Why? Because there are just bodies. The soul and the mind have been dead to God. I used to sit with my mother, may Allah bless her soul. And she would say, you're not with me. I said, but I'm here, I'm with you. She would say, no, you are here, but your mind is elsewhere. You are not here. And how I regret. And how I regret. And now I fall at her grave and I say, please, I'm here now, if you can spend some time with me. Spend time, quality time. Do one sajda, but let it be full of quality. Be there, be in the presence of God. Now, I don't know why I can't get this talk started. Forgive me, salawat. Now, God knows our frailty, and He knows we are weak. So God is God. He's not like us. Even though there are verses of the Quran that says, I'll bring you to account. But then He passes a message through the Prophet. He says, قُلْ لِعِبَادِي قُلْ لِعِبَادِي الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Say to those of my creatures who have transgressed upon their souls, or who have been extravagant, لَا تَقْنُطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair of the rahmah of Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. Allah forgives every sin. Now imagine when you have Allah like that. What stops somebody like me from telling Allah, forgive me? When I genuinely am making an attempt to come to you and asking you, forgive me. Do you think the Mighty One will not forgive? Imam Zainul Abidin says, oh Allah, give me that, after giving which you do not lose anything. Give me your forgiveness. After forgiving me, you don't lose anything. And as it is, you are needless, you don't need anything from me. What stops us from turning to God inwardly? He passes another message, قُلْ عِبَادِي إِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. I am very near. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِيَ إِذَا دَعَانِي. I respond to the plea of the one who calls unto me. But obviously, we ask Allah for cars, don't we? For houses. Maybe once in a while, that's good. It's not wrong, because I also like you to take me out in good cars. But ask Allah for Himself. Ask Allah for His pleasure and the increase of His light within us. Yeah? Now if you look at Allah, the way He talks with us in order to awaken us, the utmost reverence He gives to us. يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك. O noble man, what has deceived you from your generous Lord who has created you? What has deceived you? He's asking a question. When we look at God in the Quran, He's so brilliant and overwhelming. Look at the being of God in the Quran. When they asked the Prophet to define God, the verse came, قُل, say. So the Prophet said, قُل. Then the verse was structured, Huwa, He, the unknown, the one without a name or a label or description. Huwa, He. Allah is Allah, the one that you may recognize. As-Samad, the overpowering one, the one that has no defects or limit inside Him. So God is saying, look, there is no definition for God. He is the unknown. Then the verse says, هُوَ الْأَوَّلُ وَالْآخِرُ وَالظَّاهِرُ وَالْبَاطِنُ. He is the first, He is the last, He is the apparent, He is the hidden. Can you imagine that is the description of God? It is as if I am not, it is but He. Does that not now bring meaning to the sentiment of Imam Hussein? It is only you. There is nothing but you. I am the veil. I am the distance. That's what Imam Hussein says. When were you at a distance that I needed to come close to you? You have always been close. It is I who has remained at a distance from you. When were you hidden that I needed to see you? Blind are the eyes that do not see you watching over them. Then Allah, Nurus Samawati wal Ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Imagine these wonderful descriptions of God, and then reflect deep within ourselves what God is. And with a being like that, we cannot interact at a bodily level of paradise and hell. We can't. It is inconsistent with His reverence. I don't want to go to hell, and may Allah spare me and all of us any tribulation in this life and beyond, that and beyond, and I know He will. The Prophet said, Allah is so noble, so noble. He will not disappoint you. You will find Him as you want Him to be. If you want Him to be like a parent who sees you and embraces you with tears in her eyes, forgetting all your false deeds, then that will be Allah for you. He will not disappoint you. What stops me from yearning, my beloved, save me, myself? That level of God is too profound for us to belittle in the way that people like me are belittling Him. Look at God. أَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, there you shall find the face of God. Look at what the Quran is saying. هُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you may be. For one who has Allah with him, should he have any insecurities and fears? Should he? The amount of times I have bargained with God, you know that? Alhamdulillah, we are all on a journey. I will do this for you and I will do that for you. And God just smiles, yeah, okay, whatever. Let's do it. And then of course I forget to do it, and then I just say, well, forgive me, I can't do it. By the way, I've done that with God all the time, yeah. Somebody said to me, you need to commit. We have to, the deeds have to be sincere. And then I turned to my God and I said, I can't find a single deed that I've done just for you. They've all been infested with my ego, and I can't do any better than that. And I also know you will accept them. Think about it. I'm not Prophet Muhammad or Imam Ali or Imam Hussein. I can't do these things. They can do it. In every single thing I do, there is a shred of ego. And I can't rid it. But I'm not going to curse myself for it either. Because I know, oh my Lord, you don't expect anything more than that from me. And I know you will accept it. Look at the verse of the Quran. Allah yahul baynal mar'i wa qalbihi. Allah comes between a man and his own heart. My heart is the most intimate part of me. Yeah? It's not even the thinking mind, it's the feeling being. The most proximate thing to defining me is my heart and the way I feel. The Quran says it comes between you and your own self. It's never been you, it's always been He. You have been the impediment. I'm searching for God. Where will you find Him? In the Kaaba? On the throne? He is the first and the last. He is the apparent and the hidden. Where will you find Him? It's strange that God awaits reception from deep within, and we try to find Him in Makkah. Strange. It is here that His throne is. He needs to reside here. But before He can reside here, I need to vacate His throne. Isn't that clear? Only I am the impediment. I am the other God, the mushrik, the shirk, the partner of God. That needs to be broken. I was going to say that needs to be beheaded, but I thought, well, ISIS have done that. That's not a good example. I know it's a sensitive night, but I am not immune to shaitan. If you look at the most prominent verses of the Quran that the Prophet has said that these are the mother of the book, but not the word mother he did not use, but these are the essence of the Quran, Surah Tawheed. It's talking about absolute unity of God. Ayatul Kursi, La ta'akhuduhu sinatun wala nawm. No slumber overtakes him, no sleep overtakes him. He's ever vigilant and ever present and holding everything together. And Shahid Allah annahu la ilaha illa hu. God bears witness, there is no God but He. These are the prominent verses. Now, if you were to look at all of these things, God does not leave any space for other than God. In the final analysis, calling anyone other than God is a form of transgression upon God. It is. To call anyone other than God is a transgression upon the right of God. Look at the story of Imam Hussein. Who does he call on to? On the plains of Karbala, who does he call on to? Does he call on to anybody? He is imploring his Allah. He is not calling on to anyone. It is good for us to call on to whoever we call on to. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it's our human condition in which we will do those things, and it's not shirk. But for people who become enlightened, whose hearts open to the beloved, why would they call anyone but their beloved? But when you go to the Prophet, then it is the reverence and the respect of the Prophet that you say to the Prophet, intercede for me. That you say to Allah, allow His intercession. But oh Allah, you know that I want your intercession from you first and foremost. But I will abide by courteous behavior and give your Prophet his right. Yes? There's a way of behavior and there is the inner being. We need to get these things right and learn them. God does not leave any place for anybody else. It is just you and your truth. Move to Him and move quickly. Now, it's obvious I'm not going to get through this talk, so I'm going to abandon it now. What is the means of getting to God? Now you'll be shocked. The means to God is sin. Our sins, our frailties, our weaknesses, our inabilities is the only mean to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know how profoundly sin works in taking us to our God? I've met with people who say, I've not done anything wrong. And that arrogance comes in, and that stifles them. And I've met with people who say, I've not done anything right. And they are humble to the core. You see, when we understand that we are embedded within layers of sins and faults, then through that weakness we are humbled and we reach out to God. And that's the only means to God. And Ali Salamullah alayhi clarifies this in his dua. Antal Hadi wa ana dhal. You are the merciful and I'm the sinner. You are the guide and I'm the one who is lost. I have nothing but inadequacy through which I reach out to you. That inadequacy is the key, and we all have it. To reach out to God. But how to reach out to God? To see God as a master and as a parent. He says He's the king, He's the God, He's the creator, He's the nurturer. This attribute of being the nurturer is the parental motherly attribute. And it's deliberately kept as a feminine attribute. Because a mother forgets right and wrong when it comes to her nature overpowering her when she receives her children. So when we go to our mothers with crocodile tears, they will fall for it. Even though they know it's a lie. Same thing with God. I tell God, you know I'm coming to you pretentiously, and I know you will accept it. This is how God is. I know, you know, I know. I'm just saying these things, but I know you will accept it. And He does. To approach God in humility, in appealing to His parental aspect, and making way towards God. So Shaitan was preaching, and his tasbih fell, and all the angels rushed and picked his tasbih and gave it to him. Never mind. But then, the real way to approach God is to remove barriers between us and our God. You see, there is always a barrier. There is always some level of formality with God. You're my parent, you're my master. If not you, then who else? This is what we say to God, right? If you don't take mercy on me, then who will? That is the approach with God. No. The approach with God is one of wilaya, friendship. Why is the friend the proximate being to our souls? Our mothers, no matter how blindly they love us, they will not be able to withstand what we have become. We cannot disclose to our mothers what is happening inside there. You know that? It is only a friend with whom we would share everything openly, because we know our friend will accept us as we are without judgment. God has to be befriended, and we need to share with God openly. These are the final levels of reaching and meeting with God. There has to be such brutal honesty with God. I have done this and you know, and I'm very weak and I'm sorry. I'm doing it again and again, but understand me. Oh friend, you know I'm apologizing to you, but you know I'm going to do it again, and that's my nature. The friend hears, listens, allows us to speak. The friend says, I accept you as you are. But if we have the courage, then we take the next step. And we say, Allah, I don't trust you. Forgive me. I have to be honest with you. I can't be hidden from you. You see what is inside me. I'm not going to hide from you. I don't trust you. I don't think you promise and you live up to your promise. I don't think it is true that I pray to you and you grant my prayers. I'm going to be honest with you, oh God. We need to come to that level of proximity with God, where we can share so openly and without embarrassment. And then we take the next few steps and we say, oh Allah, I'm so embarrassed about myself that I can't look at myself. I need you to encourage me. I need you to make me feel worthwhile. I have fallen. I need you to extend your hand and to lift me. Oh Allah, I have failed. I need you to tell me, but I am a success in your eyes. To construct that relationship with God. And then to move with God. At that point, if death were to come, as Akbar says, it makes no difference whether we rush into the embrace of death or death comes and overtakes us. Such is the mention of the master of ours. On this night, it is said that Imam Hussein and his companions were devoting themselves to God. The enemies approached the camp of Hussein. Abbas, talk with them, negotiate with them, allow them, ask them to allow us respite until the morning. Abbas, I wish to spend this night in devotion to Allah before I meet with my Lord. That is how he wanted to spend his last few hours. It is said, the way they devoted themselves on this night, it sounded like the humming of the bees. 30 odd people defected from the camp of Umar ibn Sa'd and joined with Imam Hussein on this night. Imam Sajjad says that Bibi Zainab was in my tent. My father came and he said, "O time, woe be unto you as a companion. For how many have awoken in the morning only for you to lay them to rest by nightfall. Indeed, the promise of departure has approached, and the matter is with the Mighty One." I heard this, realize he is announcing the approaching of his death. I hid my tears. My aunt heard the same thing. She came to my father and she said, "In that case, I will be without a brother. Will you die?" Imam Hussein said, "O Zainab, do not lose sight of forbearance. Do not let the devil overpower your heart. Do not complain. Bear it." I'm going to narrate from the popular narration, and I believe these sentiments are fine. The night deepens. Zainab is filled with anguish and worry. She thinks to herself, "Let me take news of my brother." She goes to the tent of Hussein. She finds it unguarded. She's filled with rage. How dare Abbas and Habib leave my brother unguarded on such a night? She peeks inside the tent and she finds Hussein in devotion and sajda. She is coming with rage to the tent of Abbas. When she hears sounds emanating, she looks into the tent and she finds Abbas in the center and the Hashimis revolving around Abbas. He says, "O sons of Hashim, what will you do tomorrow when the battle breaks out? The call is yours, O Master Abbas. Order and you will find us compliant. You will be the first ones to give your lives tomorrow. Least anyone says that Hussein sacrificed his companions first in order to save his family." She was filled with emotions, became tearful. She was retreating when she heard similar noises from the tent of Habib. She looks and she sees Habib in a similar position, polishing his blade, and the Ansar around him. "Ya ma'ashir al-Ansar, O helpers of Hussein, what is your resolve? What will you do tomorrow when the battle breaks out? Command, O Habib. We shall be compliant. We will be the first ones to give our lives. Least anyone says that the companions favored their lives over the lives of the family of Hussein." As she moved away, Hussein approached her. She broke into a faint smile. He said, "O sister, at such a sensitive night, I see a smile upon your face." She explained to him what she had heard and seen. "Do you wish to assure yourself of the loyalty of my companions? Indeed, O brother. Stand behind that tree," he says. "O Abbas, O sons of Hashim, hasten to me. O Habib, O companions, hasten to me." They come running to Hussein. He assembles them. He says, "Tomorrow when the battle breaks out, your deaths will not spare me. They will kill me nonetheless. But on this night, you may escape from this wilderness and save your lives, and no blemish upon you." As soon as Hussein said this, the companions were startled. They said, "Hussein, do you doubt our loyalty? Do you wish us to behead our own selves to prove to you? Hussein says, what will you do? Muslim ibn Awsajah says, oh Hussein, I will fight your enemy with my sword, and when my sword breaks, with my lance, and when that breaks, with my hands, and when my hands are cut, and if after that I'm put to that, and if after that I'm cut into pieces, and if after that I'm burned to ashes, I will beg Allah to restore me once again, to die for you all over again. Hussein said, no wasi or wali or nabi have been granted the likes of the companions that I have been granted. Like pure water they are. There is no impurity within them. Ashur comes. The companions give their lives. The family give their lives. Hussein is on his own. He looks on, sees the enemy, looks behind him, sees tearful women, and he cries out, is there anyone who will come and save the honor of the household of the Prophet? There is silence. He calls again, and then there are cries from his tent. He turns, Zainab, has a child died due to thirst? She said, oh brother, take your Ali Asghar and quench his thirst, for I am fearful the thirst will kill him. I resort to the popular narration. Imam Hussein places his cloak and abba on Ali Asghar and rides into the battlefield. The Dhakirin say, he has brought the Quran to intercede for him. He unveils Ali Asghar and raises him. He says, oh people, I have wronged you according to you. What has this child done to you? If you are fearful that I will drink your water, then come and place a drop of water into his mouth. I will place him upon the dust. Hurmala. Cut off Hussein's speech. Hurwala takes aim. The arrow is released. Hussein is pleading with his God, oh Lord, I have snatched him from a mother who has no another. Oh Lord, I have nothing else to give to you. As Hussein is pleading to God, Asghar turns upon his hands. Hussein feels the warm blood oozing from the torn neck of Asghar into the palm of his hand. He becomes aware that Asghar has been killed. He trembles violently. He looks towards the sky and then he looks towards the earth. Unable to move forward, takes a step, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Then pauses, then moves back, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I say, oh Hussein, it is but a child. It has no weight. Why do you tremble so? Have you not received your Abbas and Qasim and Akbar? Oh Hussein, move on, take him back to the tents. He says, you know not, there is a mother waiting for him. Martin Hussein.